This problem asks us to find the value of this algebraic fraction. It's tempting when you see 2t plus t to think, oh, I should just add those things together and make the question simpler. So you might write 2t plus t is just 3t, and then we still have the minus x on top, and we still have the t minus x on the bottom. So our new question would be 3t minus x over t minus x equals question mark. However, this isn't the best plan, because before you try to rephrase the question, you should have a look at the statements. And notice that in statement 1, they give us the value of 2t over t minus x. And if we look at the original question, there's a 2t on top, and there's a t minus x on the bottom, and we lost that when we rephrased the question like this. So instead of rephrasing it this way by combining the t's, let's start over and try to keep this 2t over t minus x in our rephrased question. So let me erase this, and let's try to rephrase this a new way. Noticing the 2t on the top here, we can say 2t over t minus x, and then this other stuff can be part of a second fraction. So added to the 2t over t minus x term, we have t minus x all over t minus x equals question mark. This is already looking more promising, because here in the second term, t minus x over t minus x, the numerator and the denominator are the same thing. So this second fraction is just going to be 1. So we can rephrase this further and say 2t over t minus x plus 1 equals question mark. When we look at this form of the question, we can see that the plus 1 is something that can be ignored. The mystery here is, what is this fraction 2t over t minus x? So we really just want to ask, what is 2t over t minus x? What is that equal to? This last line and the one before it are equivalent, because anytime you can answer the bottom question, you can answer the top one by simply adding 1, and vice versa. If you can say what this line is, you're also going to be able to say what this line is by simply subtracting 1. Now, turning to statement 1, it comes right out and says that 2t over t minus x equals 3. So statement 1 is obviously sufficient. So let's write a little s right here next to statement 1. And if we put up our DABC grid, we can cross out B, C, and E because we found that 1 is sufficient. Turning to statement 2, it tells us that t minus x equals 5. Now our question is asking for 2t over t minus x, and statement 2 is just telling us about the bottom part of this fraction. What we want is 2t over t minus x, and thanks to statement 2, we can just say that's equal to 2t over 5. But this isn't much help, because we don't know the value of t. Essentially what we found is that the number we're looking for equals 2 times a mystery over 5. So we have to say that statement 2 is insufficient, which implies that the answer has to be A, because only statement 1 is sufficient. And finally, let me wrap this up with a couple of takeaways. The first thing I'd like you to take from this is that you should rephrase the question to match the statements. Remember that it was a bad idea when we tried to combine 2t plus t and present the question as, what is 3t minus x over t minus x? That turned out to be kind of a dead end. Whereas when we looked ahead at the statements, we were able to see, oh, let's try to massage this original thing so that it looks like what the statements are going to give us. And that turned out to be the key to solving. The second takeaway here is that you don't need to solve for each variable. By that I mean that when you're asked to find the value of an algebraic expression like this one, you don't necessarily have to solve for each individual variable. As we saw in this problem, statement 1 turned out to be sufficient, even though it doesn't tell us what t and x are individually. If you came to this problem feeling that the only way to get at the value of this whole fraction was to solve for t and x individually, you'd end up picking the wrong answer. To get t and x individually, we would need to use both statements. You'd have to substitute statement 2 into statement 1, and you'd be able to solve for t and then ultimately for x. Anyway, that involves using both statements, so you would end up thinking that the answer was C, when in fact, statement 1 by itself is sufficient, and the true answer is A. And that's all for this problem. I hope you'll like the video and subscribe to this channel to get more solutions from Chiron GMAT.